PA being public announcement, public address systems, and then related electrical items, as well as some HVAC work that's planned there to take place to update that heating and cooling system at the grandstands. So what you will see there is a reflection of dollars spent, as well as the remaining cost to complete is to cover the HVAC improvements and updates that I just mentioned. So that's the expected use of those $58,000 that's there. And then, of course, what will happen is that would move closer to 100% complete again and likely be rolled up very similar to how you see the multi-purpose building and the repairs, demolition, and site master planning section.
Ed, this is Commissioner Hammer. The HVAC, where is that going to be installed at, and what building, what facility?
Yeah, so that will be the grandstands. They're still being utilized. It's a replacement of two HVAC systems that has honestly been delayed a little bit. So it'll take place at that structure.
Is this like the office buildings then behind the grandstand? Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Again, so we get to the total project cost, and you'll see again just over 37.6 million spent to date, with 3.3, nearly 3.4 remaining in that section. And on the next page, you will see Fair Park. Much leaner numbers. We are essentially complete with phase 1B of Fair Park, which is essentially all of the work that's been authorized to this point to proceed. There is a little bit of work related to landscaping, a couple items there, some seed and straw, and then of course waiting for some plantings to be replaced. Likely will just be done later in the year when more appropriate under the warranty. But as we move to close out there in the next couple of weeks, I think you will again see we continue to report on these numbers, of course, but the amount of activity will drastically decrease. Again, appropriate for where we are on that project. If you look at the overall percent complete, just over 97% complete, likely to be some savings there in that bucket of funds. There are a couple items that could be addressed that have been highlighted, but as of today, we think that we will be well reserved in terms of completing that project and have no budget concerns really related to any area on the budget I presented to you today. Are there any questions there before I switch gears and head to the DBE update? Great. Well, board and staff, I'd like to say I'm extremely excited about where we are on this project as we move towards the end of what I'll say is the bulk of this project. A lot of these figures are going to be pretty representative of where we'll land as it relates to the projects that we've been discussing over the past several years. Before I move on, though, I'll call attention that the figures that I'm about to present, they're based on work performed through the end of May. And reason behind that is what we're reporting to you are dollars paid, and so work at the end of May means that the vendors and contractors were able to supply us with an invoice. It'd be reviewed, approved, submitted to Metro Finance, and paid and recognized. So as we move forward, again, just like the figures you saw on the budget, we like to take into account the time for actual processing of funds, and as it relates to the DBE's actual receipt of payment. So, and I work down this chart as well. And again, jump in if you have questions. But the construction, and this is inclusive of all construction that I highlighted during my budget update, but it is broken into two categories: non-expo, which is inclusive of the Fair Park as well as the grandstands under Skanska, and then also the Fairgrounds Expo. So Skanska led the construction management. They ended up utilizing a total of 31 DBEs. 15 of those were women-owned businesses, 12 were minority-owned, and 4 were small businesses. I'm not sure how many of you may recall, or just for the record here, but I'll state it, that when we moved forward with the Fairgrounds Expo, it was a request of Metro, the city, and the Fair Board to Skanska to place a 30% target on their Fairgrounds Expo work, which is an increase from their original contracted target of 20%. And at that time, we were approaching about 28% related to the work that had been completed before we started the expo. So what you see here is a breakout. 27% of work under Skanska related to the fairgrounds, not including the expo, is at 27%. And then as we speak on expo, I believe they've achieved their goal of 30% or more by achieving 33%. Now, these numbers are not final, but again, based on where we are in the project, I think it's pretty safe to say they will have eclipsed the 30% number. So I don't believe there's anybody from Skanska on the call, but I would like to publicly give them kudos and props for being great team players and helping us achieve a goal that was put in place a few years ago. That total of dollars spent with DBEs is just over $13.2 million to date. We expect that figure to increase slightly as we work through the final few payments and get everything caught up, but these figures are pretty representative of the project. As far as design and engineering for the Fairgrounds campus work that I've been presenting to you for a few years now has been led by Axon and Associates. They've always had a fairly high participation, Axon and Associates themselves being a small business, but the team in total consisted of 6 small businesses, 4 women-owned businesses, and 1 minority business, for a total of 11 diversity business entities. And to date, they have been paid on this project over $2.5 million. So another great accomplishment as it relates to diversity business utilization. Project management and communications. So I myself and my firm are represented under this number. This has been a project that has had, or this has been a set of projects that have had 2 separate lead firms under project management. But the expo itself, and as we continue to move through and complete the project, GHP has been the lead, and they are a woman-owned business. And in its entirety, the project management and communications has consisted of 2 women-owned businesses, 2 minority-owned businesses, and 1 small business entity. Since its inception, 100% participation, which is great. Under GHP, 55% of the funds for project management have gone to WBEs, essentially GHP, and 45% of funds have gone to minority-owned businesses. So a great split between funds there. So for a total of the 5 DBEs that are represented, $2.2 million has been paid to date. Overall, what that has done for the entirety of the allocation of dollars for the Fairgrounds improvement projects gives a total participation of 38%, a total of 47 DBEs, and these are unique DBEs. There are some under construction that have multiple contracts, but 47 unique diversity businesses for a total of $17.9 million paid to date, just under $18 million, which is a great number. It rivals previous project high that I was aware of, which was Riverfront Park in the same amphitheater. I think the construction there was maybe a little bit higher, but considering the type of work that we were doing here and the budget constraints that we had, I'm extremely proud of the project. And there's still an opportunity to get more diversity participation in dollars. So as I mentioned to you earlier, multi-purpose building and storage area, we've been preparing for that solicitation. We hope for it to be published and open in the next couple of weeks. And I will continue to report on that progress as well. That will conclude my report. Commissioner McNally, I'll turn it over to the board or staff for any questions. Happy to address any items that I presented this morning.
Thank you so much, Mr. Henley. Do we have any questions for the board or from the board? Okay, great. We are going to backtrack for just one moment. Apparently we had a caller that stated that he couldn't get in at the appropriate time. So we are going to open the floor for public comment for that caller. The phone number is 629-255-1939. That number is 629-255-1939. We're going to give them just a moment, and then we'll get back to the agenda. Christy, just let me know if that caller shows up. I'll reiterate just in case this is the problem. It is not 615 as the area code. It is 629-255-1939.
Chair, I've just gotten a text message from a caller who said it's still closed, and he's dialing the 629 number.
Thank you, Commissioner Weiner. Christy, have we tested the line?
Chairman McAnally, we've tested the lines on 2 different cell phones here, and it's working with our cell phones. So.
Okay, I'm going to try it myself.
Okay.
Commissioner Hammer, I would also add that our emails are on the Fair Board's website, and we can be emailed if any members of the public have anything that they'd like to share with us at any time.
Thank you for adding that, Commissioner Hammer.
Chairman McAnally, your call is ringing here.
Okay, great. Yes. Yeah, I got through then. Thank you so much, Bree.
And also, I do have my emails pulled up, Commissioner Hamer, so if we get an email, I'll forward that as well. So.
Okay, so the line is officially working. Christy, I guess just let us know if the caller gets through, and we can readdress at that time. I will temporarily close the floor for public comment and move back to the agenda for the MLS Stadium update. Mrs. Kobara.
Good morning, and thank you, Commissioner McAnally. I'm here today on behalf of Nashville Soccer Club and our ownership group. I'll share a brief update on the team and the MLS Stadium project with items that have happened since the June meeting. As with all professional sports, we're working through uncharted territory. Our team traveled to Orlando to join the other MLS clubs for tournament play. However, we were withdrawn from the tournament last week. Despite having taken all the necessary steps and followed all the mandated protocols, members of our team caught the virus. Our team is committed to safety, the same as all the other MLS teams. But we are finding day to day this virus is indiscriminate, and sadly, we were caught by it. Our efforts are now turning to preparation and participation in the return to play for the latter half of the season. Our priority remains focused on the safety of our players, staff, and fans. We expect to learn more about the remainder of the season soon. We also continue to support our fellow Nashvillians during this pandemic. We recently participated in the Governor's Tennessee Strong Mask initiative with other sports teams and businesses. We provided 10,000 masks in 4 languages, English, Spanish, Kurdish, and Arabic, and are working with United Way to distribute these masks to underserved communities. And if anyone is aware of other nonprofits that do need these masks, please contact the United Way and they can assist with the distribution. So all said, we do remain excited to join the rich traditions of the Fairgrounds Nashville, including the flea markets, automobile racing, and the state fair. As you know, demolition at the Fairgrounds Nashville site must be complete prior to commencement of construction of the MLS Stadium. Ed has reported on the demolition status. All of the bid packages for construction have been released, and many have been submitted back to the construction manager. One of the key components of this project is the DBE commitment. And similar to the fairgrounds work, the target is 30%. And we're pleased to report that we are on track at this early stage and are strongly committed to meet the goals and exceed them if possible. And we'll continue to provide you with updates on this part of the project as well. With close coordination between Laura and her team, along with GHP, CPS, and CAA ICON, construction site preparation has commenced as expected. We also continue to target substantial completion for mid-May of 2022. And my caveat is that similar to any construction project, schedules may change as the work progresses. Along with the commencement of construction, we believe that it's very important to be a good neighbor. We worked with the Mayor's Office, Councilman Sledge, Laura, the Sports Authority, Mortensen Messer, and many others to host an introductory virtual meeting for the neighbors closest to the site. And based on the participation, we felt that that was a very successful kickoff. We will continue to provide ongoing weekly updates and other periodic meetings as the project progresses. Also, as you may recall, the Sports Authority Board previously approved certain documents related to the construction of the stadium, including the lease agreement, the development agreement, and the construction administration agreement. We have worked with the Metro legal team to update these documents per the terms of the February 2020 agreed upon term sheet. We expect that the Sports Authority will be approving the revised documents later this week. There are also other documents related to the stadium and the mixed-use ground lease that the Fair Board previously approved in 2018 that have also been updated, and these are covered on the agenda, I think, later today. This concludes my update. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kvara. Board members, any questions? Okay, great. Christy, any update?
No one has called in.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to move on to new business. We're going to do a little bit of a reorder here and switch around event review and discussion and contract with Track Enterprises so that we can accommodate some scheduling with Dr. Caldwell from the Health Department. So let's talk about item B under new business, event review and discussion. We have Mr. Dice, Mr. Sargent, and Dr. Caldwell here to go over that with us.
I can do a quick introduction, everyone. This is Laura. I know that this was a very complex conversation in regards to hosting the first race, one of the first outdoor events that occurred in Nashville since we have been in the phased reopening. I want to thank everybody for their time and attention. I want to thank certainly the Health Department, Randy, Bob, fairground staff. Everybody worked really hard along with certainly all of you to have a thoughtful and comprehensive plan to safely invite people back to the race. I'm going to turn it over to maybe Bob and Randy can talk a little bit about the race and the precautions that were taken. And then certainly if you have any questions at all for the Health Department, Dr. Caldwell has been a fantastic partner and very open and very present to walk us through his expectations for these events as well.
Bob, do you want to go? Well, this is Randy. I'm not sure if he's on here or not, but just to give you an update, the race went real well. Dr. Caldwell was in attendance with 2 to 3 other health officials. The mask compliance, we had security going up and down the stairwells in the concourse. We spread out the concourse so that there was not a close network of concessions. The racers, we kept them spread, and when they were in their areas like concessions or tire barn or restrooms, they were wearing masks unless they were up in their own trailers. So overall, I think the response from the race community was very good. They were glad to get back racing. They were glad everybody was on board to help do that as well. So we look forward to hopefully continuing and moving forward, with the direction of Dr. Caldwell and the health department.
Thank you so much, Randy. Dr. Caldwell, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Doing everything we can to control the COVID in our community. We are also trying to look at the lowest risk environments where our community can still enjoy certain activities. And I'll make a note that, the park system has never been closed. We've always encouraged people to go out to parks, socially distance, initially wear face masks, especially if they're within a certain distance of anyone, unless they're with people in their own household. And if you have had the chance to go out to some of the park systems in Davidson County, I think you would have observed there being lots of activity, and people really, my observations, are doing an excellent job about keeping their distances and enjoying their activities. So when I had the opportunity to look at the fairgrounds and this particular event and other similar events, I approached it with that same point of view. We in the Department of Health have learned a lot over these last few months, and I have come up with concerns regarding what I call the fearsome four. The fearsome four are events that are indoor, events that don't have face masks or are not doing a good job enforcing face masks, events where social distancing is not good and the capacity is not appropriate, and then events that have alcohol. So if you look at the fairgrounds and the racing event, I determined that it provided the lowest risk environment for us to proceed and try to find a way to have this activity. First of all, it was an outdoor activity similar to a park-like setting. Face masks were required and enforced. Social distancing was required and enforced, and the capacity was significantly reduced so that social distancing could be maintained throughout the entire property and event, and also no alcohol was sold. And I was very pleased to also have the opportunity to educate the public, to educate the staff, to educate other business owners who participated in this event that face masks are important. They need to be on at all times in this environment, and that social distancing is important. We also had additional cleaning available. There was an attendant in each of the bathrooms that went in after every time a person used it. There were hand washing stations and hand sanitizers readily available. And I was very pleased with my observations throughout the time. We just yesterday went through an additional review of what happened previously and anticipation of how the enforcement efforts could be improved moving forward. So I'll conclude my remarks there and see if there's any additional questions or information I could provide to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. And just speaking personally, I think this facing down, having an event, at all in these times was, it gave me pause personally, and I want to thank you, and I want to thank Mr. Dice and Sergeant for your diligence, as well as the fairground staff and Laura. I know you guys worked very hard to ensure the safety of the public, so I want to thank you for that. I do have a couple questions, but I want to open it up for other board members as well. Do we have any questions from the board?
I do.
Commissioner.
Okay, Commissioner Weiner, would you like to go first?
Can you hear me now? It looks like I'm muted.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Just a couple of questions, if you don't mind. If we determine through the health department that any subsequent contact tracing is tied to the race, will the Fair Board be notified?
This is Dr. Caldwell. I certainly would provide that information. Of course, it would coincide with how we communicate with other places where we may have seen a cluster of cases. We would not violate any HIPAA guidelines in that regard. But yes, we're very thoughtful about making sure that this gets followed up closely, and we would communicate any connectivity with that to you.
Okay. My second question then would be, you mentioned in your previous remarks that there would be a review of your enforcement effort. What type of things do you foresee needing a tweak?
I think there is a discrepancy between what NASCAR's recommendations are and what we're requiring in Nashville, Davidson County. So if you have visitors, customers who maybe have gone to another event where the requirement is to wear a face mask unless you're seated at your seat, that's different. So it's an educational component for us to let people know that here at the Fairgrounds Raceway, it's different. You need to keep that mask on at all times. Another issue is not specific just to this event, but just in general, that when people are either actively eating or drinking, of course, they need to have their face mask removed. And the question is, how long is it reasonable for people to have that face mask off while they're eating or drinking? So we're having to monitor closely. We don't want people just holding on to their can of soda for the entire time they're there, saying they're drinking and never putting their face mask on. So we'll be doing our best to increase compliance and help people to keep those face masks on the majority of the time.
And then my last question, just for clarification and reiteration, I know that when I had initially looked at this, there was going to be a bar open, and then thankfully that was rescinded. There won't be any movement to reopen any of the bars at any of the locations on the grounds, right?
This is Dr. Caldwell. Yeah, go ahead. I'll let someone else answer that. Go ahead.
This is Randy. Just so y'all know, too, Bob is on the line, but he's having some audio difficulties, so he can hear us, but he can't speak. But the bars are only selling soda and water, so if you see people at the bar itself's open because we're trying to keep people hydrated, but it's only soda and water. There's no alcohol sales on the property.
That's great. Thank you. I don't have any further questions, Chair.
I just didn't want you to get misled when you see people at the bar location, because it does say bar on it. So,
okay, thank you.
Thanks for that clarification.
I also wanted to let y'all know that at all gate locations we did temp checks. At the race competitor location, we not only had a infrared camera system where they had to go through a tent to do their temp check, but they also did a smell check, which is one of the symptoms that is COVID. Just so you know.
Thank you, Mr. Dice. Commissioner Bergeron, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. And I guess I want to start out just sort of thanking everyone involved for their hard work. And to the board, I wanted to sort of acknowledge that I obviously sent that email to Randy a couple days before the race, and certainly didn't intend to cause a lot of work for everyone. I think we ran into a little bit of a challenge because we didn't have a June board meeting to discuss all this, and so things got down to near the end, and I think it seems like a lot of folks just had a lot of questions, and I did as well, and I wanted to acknowledge that, in response, or after that, received really great communications from Randy and Bob about their thoughtfulness of it, and I appreciated from Randy that the bars were closed after the fact, that capacity was lowered, and also that it looked like there was a real redoubling of effort by to stress the need for masks, and I really appreciated that was noted. I don't know that I'd seen a lot of that, and in that last 40 hours, I think we really saw a lot of statements about masks being strictly enforced, so I really appreciate that. I did want to sort of ask about future capacity, because I think the number I saw was around 1,500. Is that right, Randy, for this race that actually attended?
Correct. We were at 1,505. The doctor had approved 2,550, which is 20% capacity, and that's what he's approved to date for this next race, with a possibility of going to 25% if he feels comfortable.
Okay, I do have a question about that, because from the photos I saw, it looked okay as is, but if you're adding potentially 1,000 more people to the stands from what was there in the last one, that gives me a lot of concern and pause that that's such a big number. Do you guys have any thoughts on that, for how and why, and whether that's an advisable number to keep standing by?
I mean, we're going to reconfigure a little bit of the seating. We had originally, when we did it, we skipped every other row. We went and left sections for families to sit in, and then we blocked off seating. We're going to actually stagger after we did a walkthrough yesterday with Dr. Caldwell and a few of the other health officials. We're going to stagger some seating some more to spread people out. I feel like we have enough room. We didn't push them down close to the track. We didn't have to because of the crowd, but I think we have room to push them down closer to the track. So I feel pretty comfortable that we can have that number and keep them social distanced properly. Most of the people were sitting in the middle sections. We had it sectioned off in zone A, B, and C, but the majority of the people were in B, with some in C and some in A. So we have room to improve in both areas there, plus the lower section. So I feel pretty comfortable with that. And I think Dr. Caldwell, I don't want to speak for him, but I think he does as well.
Okay. I did have a couple other questions. One, I heard Commissioner Wiener mention contact tracing, and I don't know if we still have Dr. Caldwell or not, but I have seen some media reports over the last couple of days that indicating a real potential lag in contact contact, where folks aren't being contacted when they test positive for an extended period. And can you report on those contact tracing efforts? I mean, do we have adequate contact tracers in the county? Is that system sort of a viable system to even apply to a race situation like this?
Yeah, it's Dr. Caldwell, and yeah, with the increasing case numbers, we are adding more contact tracers, and we are also exploring other options to be able to more rapidly reach out to people through other technology. So I feel confident that we are able to identify and uncover clusters throughout the community, so this would really be no different. I do want to emphasize that people who are residents of Nashville-Davidson County are the ones that we get their lab reports on and our contact tracing. So people who live outside of Nashville-Davidson County wherever they may get a test. If they were to get a test, that test gets reported to their local Department of Health of where they live. So we would certainly work with the Tennessee Department of Health in coordinating any potential clustering that might be identified if somebody identified a particular event that they went to. And, let's say theoretically there were a certain number of positives at a particular event in the state health department that monitors all of the clustering throughout the state, would be able to help piece that together if people, let's say, resided in different parts of the state but may have attended one particular event. So this is something that has been longstanding, a part of our public health contact tracing in regards to identifying sources of infection. All that being said, I want to make it clear that the COVID is really pretty much throughout the community, so it would be hard to identify at this point even a specific place that people might have been impacted or affected. Although we still are seeing clusters, we still can identify them. But since we want people to assume they have COVID at all times and assume anyone they meet may have it, and that hopefully will keep people with their face masks on and keep social distancing and keep them washing their hands and using the hand sanitizer, because that's really what we need to do overall throughout the community as people conduct themselves, outside of this particular event. So thank you.
I guess I'll just sort of close out for the commissioners. I don't think I have any more questions. I just, that being that the attendees are for these races are often from surrounding counties, and it sounds like that system of contact would be a quite a drawn out process. I have remaining concerns about this or generally any events right now of large capacity. As I think about what we're seeing and the fact that Nashville is in the middle of a crisis and numbers are getting worse every single day, I just have a lot of pause with us hosting any event. This isn't about racing. This is about any event we're hosting at the fairgrounds in any form right now, because I think philosophically we really can't treat this world like it's normal right now. For what it's worth, that's just my opinion. I have to get a problem acting like we should have any events that are normal right now. The case we are having our worst case counts over the last week and a half in Nashville. Things are really bad, and it just gives me a lot of concern to be gathering groups in those large numbers, because we just can't pretend like things are normal right now. This is a crisis, and for what it's worth, I remain to have a lot of concerns about this or any other large scale event being held in any regard at the fairgrounds right now. But I'll turn it back over to the vice chair. Thanks.
Really, this is Randy. Jason, to follow up, not that we're the health department, but we are trying to monitor everyone that was here. Obviously, our ticket system, we know their names that are here. Obviously, our race competitors and the people that come in the pits, we do. So we're trying to follow as much as we can to see if anybody has, come down with COVID or anything. But obviously, we cannot, contact trace them or anything like the health department could, because that's not legal for us to do. But we are monitoring that so that, that we're aware if somebody was here that now has it. So we're trying to do our due diligence on that as well, the best we can. That gives us legal rights to do anyway.
Sure. Thank you, Randy. And again, just reiterating, I've been really appreciative of Randy and Bob's partnership so far, and and I hope we all get past this. If folks could start taking care of themselves and being more responsible, I hope we all get past this, and and then we can focus on a good partnership with the two of them in a more normal world, because I've really appreciated their thoughtfulness so far.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bergeron. Commissioner Hemmer, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I had a question. Maybe it's for Randy. I'm guessing that we'll have contact information for anybody that buys tickets over email or electronic means. for the people that buy at the gates, could we potentially look at, for future races, doing some contact info, phone or email for those attendees in case it's needed for contact tracing?
Yeah, we're adding basically a COVID sheet they have to sign and fill out at the gates. We didn't sell but just a few tickets at the gate. Majority of our sales were online. We're pushing more online sales, but we are adding the COVID sheet at the gate. We had it for the participants, and we're adding it for the guests coming to the grandstands as well.
Thank you, and I'll just add
get as much information as we can.
No, I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the work that went on it. I share a lot of the same concerns as Commissioner Bergeron, and after talking with the staff and actually came to the race and checked things out, it gave me a lot better feel for it. Again, I think we don't need to rest on our laurels and have every precaution available in order to keep having these events and the safety measures around those. But thank you to the staff for all the extra work that went into making sure that it went off successfully.
Thank you, Commissioner Hammer. I also echo those concerns and that gratitude. I do have a quick question. So we've talked about the potential of upping the capacity. What would that look like, and what would the timing be on that? When would the cutoff be for making that decision? And will we be informed as a board?
It was discussed yesterday. We're still at the 20%, 2550 is what it actually is. Dr. Caldwell was hoping, and I think that depends on the numbers. Again, I don't want to speak for him, but he thinks that we can get to 25% moving forward, which is actually 3750 capacity. But I don't know that we actually have a timeline on that yet. Dr. Caldwell, are you still here?
See him on the line.
I may have to get an answer from him on that and send y'all an email on that answer.
Randy, this is Dr. Caldwell. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, so I think we are looking in general at venues like this and settling in on a 25% capacity, so that would get 75% social distancing. So that would be a target, and we were comfortable with what we saw at the last one. I think I'm interested, to see how we are able to move forward, and we would like to see as much of the capacity used as possible to spread out the customers that are there. But I don't think we will go above 25% for any other outdoor venues, either this one or other similar ones, until we get a lot more practice and experience.
Okay.
Dr. Caldwell, with record case counts over the last week, and with the different metrics for reopening going backwards, I mean, at what point do we take a look and say, wait a minute, we've got to go back to phase one, or we've got to close everything down? I mean, at what point do we sort of connect everything back together? I mean, what does it take, I guess, or what piece of metric would be bad to say, wait a minute, we're not doing this right, or not that maybe not we're not doing this right. People aren't doing it right because people are being really careless and irresponsible continually. I mean, I guess I'm just trying to connect those two concepts.
Sure, and I would direct everyone to the main COVID-19 website. safenashville.org is another way to get there. There's 6 metrics that we look at: transmission rate, the 14-day new case trend, the public health capacity, the testing capacity, the hospital capacity, both with floor beds as well as ICU beds. And these are being looked at and monitored daily. I am speaking to you now from the Emergency Operations Center, where the mayor is and Dr. Jahangir are preparing for the press event coming up at 9:30 today. So all of this is looked at every day, and there's continual discussions about what's working well, what's not working well, and what should we do moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bergeron, do you have more to add?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone. Laura, did you want to add anything to that?
Chair, I do have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Sherry.
So I guess my concern, and I tend to agree with Commissioner Bergeron about consistency. And as I'm looking at a Safe Nashville and the return to phase 2, we are at new gatherings over 25 people. So I guess my biggest concern is that if restaurants are operating at half capacity and if we are limiting gatherings to 25 people, and yet at the fairgrounds we're allowing upwards of 1,500 to 2,000 people, for me it's a matter of that consistency and avoiding a double standard. And I would love to hear some conversation a little bit further about that, because I'm really having a hard time wrapping my head around it.
Hi, it's Dr. Caldwell again. I can tell you that we are very much comfortable that this is an outdoor venue, and with all of the monitoring and restrictions in place, that this to us is something that is satisfactory to keep people safe, and it is helping us to develop specific guidelines with the subsequent changes in the public health orders to more clearly clarify and delineate what would be acceptable for these outdoor venues. And I'll go back to those categories that we're most concerned about, as outdoor is really much better than indoor. Face masks required at all times. These gatherings, face masks are not enforced or required outdoors the way we are in this specific location. As much as we are telling people to wear their face masks, we don't have the monitors and the security to assure that that's happening. Similarly, we do have very strong social distancing monitoring and enforcement, and of course, no alcohol. So this provides the atmosphere for us to be able to bring people together in a much reduced capacity where social distancing can be adequately maintained and enforced throughout the event.
I guess I just worry that we have, as Commissioner Bergeron and Commissioner Hemmer reflected, we've got increasing numbers, not decreasing or even stable numbers. And so that's why I continue to have a concern, not so much with the fact that it's outside, but the numbers of people that will be standing in a line, that could be standing at a bar, even if they're just getting sodas, there's still close contact, and drinking from the sodas in closer contacts. I still have real concerns about this, and I appreciate your input and you sharing that information.
Yeah, and one other thing to note is the way the order is written right now, too. If people are maintaining 6 feet of distance or further from each other, face masks are not required. Now, that's not what we're saying in this particular event. We're saying no matter where you are, face masks are required. So that's a sort of just one example of how we're really having even higher security monitoring and expectations of what this particular event would be doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. Any other questions from the board? Okay, great. We will move on. Christy, I'm going to check in with you again. Do we have anyone on the line?
Still no callers.
Okay, great. All right, then we will move on to
Erin?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
Since we're moving on, I want to thank Dr. Caldwell. I'm sure he's got to click off and prepare for the press conference, but kind of as a follow-up to that specific event review, we've kind of touched on it, but part of my motivation for this conversation today was to kind of have a discussion about moving forward. Scott Wallace has received certain inquiries with future interest in holding outdoor events. We've learned a lot about what those basic standards are for taking COVID precautions, and I think we've set the bar incredibly high. But I do also want to be thoughtful and certainly not, I kind of want to gauge the temperature of the board with pursuing further discussions on other outdoor events. Obviously not being able to predict what the numbers are going to be, where in the phased reopening we're going to be, but I also am very interested in hearing your thoughts is what now? What are the next steps? Some of the things that we have been approached on are some drive-in movies, some car-based events, drive-through like lights, potentially having a food truck type of setup for like fair foods. So a variety of things, and certainly don't want to spend an incredible amount of time and money and effort at planning these if there is a strong feeling that maybe it's a little bit too early.
Would any board members like to speak to that? Laura, thank you.
Hey,
go ahead.
It's Commissioner Bergeron. I kind of made my comments a bit ago. In echoing Commissioner Wiener's sort of more eloquent way of taking my words, I think we're sending mixed messages as a society where we try to pretend like things are normal. With all due respect, and I can assure everyone that I am very tired of sitting at home and all the time, and would love nothing more than to go do the things I love about the city. I think that if we go very far in pretending like things are normal and things are, we can do this or that, I think it kind of creates a broader sense of that then it models a behavior that folks then replicate other things. Well, I did this and that's normal, I can do this. And then that's where we start to slip, because unfortunately we're just not doing a very good job as people right now. And so, from my perspective, I just have a hard time starting to go down this road of different things, even if they were like totally car based. I mean, I think when I hear food trucks, I hear long line. But even if it was entirely car based, I just think it starts to slip down where what we saw when we started reopening across the country, in some states that did it much, much faster than Nashville or Tennessee did. And that was even too fast, but those ones are all shutting down again. And that's the problem I have. I just don't know that we should be necessarily a venue for these events that may distort reality a little bit for folks who then kind of get a sense of, sort of relaxation, and then they go off into the world and relax in other ways and continue this going on and on and on. When I know everybody wants it to end, but the only way it's going to end is if we all really make some hard choices. And the reward for that, the reward for making hard choices and making improvements is then you get the events back, not necessarily, and this seems like we may be doing that out of order. That's my individual take.
I'd like to step in on that just a little bit and maybe take it a step further and make a recommendation, because I don't like to complain without coming up with a solution. And what we might want to consider is discussing tying these events to maybe a phase 3 reopening. And while we're in phase 2, we need to act like we're in phase 2. And if we have a set of criteria by which we then move forward with these events, I think it's great to have the events. I know people are cabin fevered out, but if we can maybe tie this to something specific, like a phase 3 reopening, and at that point, then yes, we can do drive-in movies and drive-through lights, and not so sure about the food truck thing yet. Got to see the logistics. But I just wanted to throw that out there as maybe that might be criteria by which we, determine eligibility for these different events.
I like that idea, Commissioner Weiner. Commissioner Hemmer, did you have something to add?
Yes, ultimately I shared a lot of the commissioner's concerns, but I also, want to rely on staff's input strongly, as they're, ultimately, responsible for the day-to-day operations and the details when promoters bring us ideas, and so I first want to use you as a sounding board to work through these potential items. The need for creative revenue is dire, but also we have to balance that with the safety and health concerns as well. So ultimately, I just want you guys to vet them out and bring those to us in the meantime.
My understanding from Scott, too, is that many of these promoters are really in the pre-planning stages and are, as Commissioner Weiner stated, comfortable with phase 3. So I don't think that's unreasonable at all. I think it's really smart. And, they are also trying to balance, having and planning an event with who would come. That I know was a discussion point with the State Fair Commission as well, is, you could put something on, but that doesn't mean you're going to have the attendees that is needed to make an event break even. So with that said, I think that is our event promoters' desire as well, is to not look at this until a later phase.
Okay, great. So I guess there are a couple of options we could, Laura, if there is anything substantial that comes up or events that we need to review, we could do that on an individual basis, and you could communicate with the board, or we could call, if there's a list of them, maybe we call a special meeting for that. I would have no problem. This is these times call for special overseeing. So I would be happy to meet. I don't want to speak for the other board members. But if there are a substantial amount of things that we need to look at to review these. So I'm fine either way. I just wanted to throw that out there.
I agree about calling a meeting, and just that we should vet them in advance. And I also agree with Commissioner Weiner's structure, trying to put structure to this matter. I mean, I think tying it to phases would be fine as well, but it sounds like that's all very preliminary. But yeah, I just think the board should be able to have the chance to convene together and talk about things if there's anything more specific that comes down the pipe in advance.
Sure. And in the meantime, I want to thank Laura and Scott for their diligence and creativity in looking in advance in the meantime. Thank you for that, and we'll look forward to hearing what is on the plate. Anything else from the board? Laura, do you have anything to add?
Not on this topic, no, thanks.
Okay, great. So we will move on then to contract with Track Enterprises, and I will turn it over to you, Laura.
Thank you. This kind of came up late, as we were working with the health department, and it became clear that our attendance at the races was going to be within 15% of capacity. It became very clear to me that the contract terms, as was originally negotiated, certainly did not take into consideration the limitations on attendance. I'm sure you realize that causes a challenge with making their budget. So I present it to the board as a consideration and discussion of potentially amending the contract to allow some flexibility with either timing of payments to the board or a race-by-race adjustment of rent in light of a 75% reduction in gate tickets sold. So I will throw that out to you for discussion. And I do want to say that, I appreciate so much Randy and Bob's. They've been put in very difficult situation to manage races, to, have them in that quality of life. I think that the positivity that event brought, but from a business perspective, I'm sure it has been very stressful to make sure that purses are paid and that the services are provided. Needless to say, their expenses have increased as well due to the additional staff that needs to be on site to help with enforcement and the extra sanitation. So I will hopefully have explained that in enough detail for your consideration and discussion.
Do we have any discussion from the board?
I have a question.
Okay.
Does that set any kind of precedent with anybody else that might be leasing fairgrounds property in the interim? I guess it kind of takes me back to the drive-in movies, drive-through lights, and any other outdoor events that want to be held. I just question, again, applicability to other events as well. So that would be my first question.
Laura, do you want to address that, or is that a question for Mr. Dickerson?
Seems like a legal question. I'm going to defer to Alex.
Yeah, I think we'd have to see how that would apply to other events. I don't know what the event schedule looks like, and we just have to determine what's similarly situated. I will say that if this is obviously what the board's considering now would take a contract discussion, a renegotiation. So it's not like the board can't take any specific activity, but you could direct us to negotiate on certain points of the contract that you would like considered, and then we would do that separately and bring something back to the board.
So we wouldn't need to make a motion to allow this exploration to happen?
You should make a motion for it. I'm just saying that we can't unilaterally change the contract right here. It's still a negotiation that has to be done separate and apart. But what the board would like to do, you could certainly make a motion to direct the executive director to negotiate on these points, and then we bring something back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question for Laura. I just wanted to understand what the parameters of what you're looking for. And I'm peeking at what I think is a copy of the contract, the final contract. I hope I've got the final one. And I just want to kind of, because I think I'm seeing that the rent was $3,000 per local race and $6,000 per sanctioned race. And then there was a potential ticket add-on, but that's in excess of $2,500. So we're obviously not getting there anytime soon. But I guess my first question is, am I getting that right? And then, second, which parts of the rent are you looking to maybe renegotiate, Laura? And that kind of informs, obviously, what kind of motion we would make.
Yeah, Jason, you're correct on the terms. As far as the rent, and you're right, we do kind of have that performance piece in there. I think it's $1 on tickets sold past 2,500. So you're right, we're not going to hit that, and we haven't yet. So my thought was, in order to allow some flexibility, is to maybe grant in an amendment or look at adjusting on a case-by-case basis the rent due based on attendance, because that, I think we all are assuming that that is going to change and most likely increase over time, depending on where we are with case numbers and the reopening plan. And then, I think certainly we all have the desire to make the fairgrounds whole as the contract was initially negotiated. And I think there is potential to maybe get there, but in maybe look at restructuring it in a way that, by the time hopefully we get to the All-American, we're in a much better place. I don't think we're going to be at, certainly 15,000, but I hopefully we'll be in a much better place. And so if we can phase in, maybe lower the payments at the beginning of the contract, and then increase that percentage over time, somehow balance that out. I guess what I'm looking for is, are you supportive of having some sort of review of, sorry about that, of the payment terms on a race-by-race basis? It's going to be very difficult, I think, to set it a solid number now, not knowing where we're going to be 2 months from now.
Commissioner Hemmer, do you have anything to add to that? Or any questions?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do we want to make a motion there then? Other board members? Do we need to make a motion?
I would just offer that if we do make a motion, that we tie the whole discussion together with any other events that we need to try, and that way we essentially with one stone and don't set up a double standard.
Okay. Alex, do we need to make a motion for this, or can we explore this without a motion?
I mean, if you want to give permission for the executive director to renegotiate existing contracts or based on attendance, it would be helpful to have a motion to that effect. If you want to review the new renegotiated contracts on a case-by-case basis, you could do that too. It just seems like it's a little more work to do that. But the Commissioner Wiener's point, by tying it all together, that would be some helpful direction, I think, for the executive director.
Okay. Then do we have a motion from the board?
I'll move if Alex wants to do for me.
You can move that to give permission to the executive director to consider renegotiations of existing contracts on a case-by-case basis. Trying to put the language in for Commissioner Wiener. Do you want to add on to that?
I don't have anything to add to that.
If that's the motion that's being made by Commissioner Wiener in that language enunciated, I'll second that.
Great. Any discussion? Christy, do we need to repeat that, or do you have it?
I wasn't able to get every single word, but it should be on, you know, on the recording.
Okay, I would like it to be repeated for clarification, if Mr. Dickerson wouldn't mind, or if Commissioner Wiener.
That would be helpful to me too. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll put the words together, and then a commissioner can adopt what I'm saying or adjust it, obviously. Move to give the executive director permission to renegotiate existing event contracts on a case-by-case basis based on attendance requirements.
Okay, so that was just a repetition of the motion. I have a question. So that does leave it open to other. Do we not want to limit it to Track Enterprises contract?
I don't know how you can, but can we be discussing this without a motion on the floor?
Oh, I thought we were just repeating the motion that had already been seconded.
I was just making the language. Someone would need to move that into for motion.
Got it. Sorry. Okay. Sherry, would you like to move that?
Sure, I'll move that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we do not need to limit this to the Track Enterprises contract?
I don't know how we word it, but can we put something in there? I'm just now thinking about this, and I apologize. That we set criteria that could be applicable to any other leases that we've got, or any other events we've got, rather. Alex?
I mean, it's technically your motion, so you can add that as an amendment to that.
I think I need to amend it because, again, I don't believe in a double standard, and I think that we need to make sure that whatever criteria we set, we can evenly apply it when the
So if someone could just second that amended motion.
I'll second the amended motion.
My only concern about that is, and I guess we could readdress it when the time arises, is that this is an ever-changing scenario that we're living in. It is unprecedented in our lifetime. So I worry a little bit about setting a standard as opposed to readdressing. It doesn't mean that we can't hold that standard when the time comes, but binding ourselves to it. This motion worries me a little bit.
Wouldn't the, I mean, we still would, I agree completely. I just think that we're just giving some negotiating direction to you know, and the results are still going to come back to us for approval. And I agree completely. It's really hard. I mean, heck, looks like we have a new record. I'm watching Twitter right now. 771 cases, the single most ever today for Nashville. So yeah, it's changing by the second. And so I hear you. But I guess we would still get the results back to here as the commission, right? In this regard, and that might give us the sort of ongoing ability to control. I don't know.
Well, I think given that it's changing so much so fast, that whatever we do has to offer us the flexibility to amend based on whatever set of criteria we stipulate. And hopefully this thing will be over sooner rather than later. And then essentially this goes away, and we might put that in there that we're referencing just the pandemic.
Yes.
And, you know, just a note too, that in the contract, in the Track Enterprises contract that was approved by the board, we've already referenced, you know, some flexibility due to the pandemic in scheduling. We kind of put an original draft schedule, but with notations that it is anticipated that those are rescheduled and does not exactly conform. And I think we're seeing that because, you know, we had all of those cancellations and postponements at the beginning of the season. So we kind of already have something similar that we're doing with scheduling, and I'm thinking we could do something similar with rent. And then as far as other events, you know, we do negotiate those separately through our entertainment leases that are handled administratively. And so those are always handled on a case-by-case basis anyway, depending on, you know, the nature of the event. So I do want to throw that out there too.
Yeah, it's essentially contemplated completely differently, right? Because we're not looking at a monthly rent with other events.
Correct. And, you know, this contract in particular was approved by the board, which is the other ones are administrative under our authority to enter into those types of contracts. So this one is different because it went to the board and was negotiated by authorization of the board.
Okay. Commissioner Weiner, would you like to amend that motion then, based on that information?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. So just take out my amendment, delete my amendment.
Okay, so what's the original motion?
Alex, would you read it back, please, because I didn't write it down. I apologize.
Sure. Okay, so it's going to be to grant the executive director permission to renegotiate existing contracts based on attendance criteria.
Existing contracts with Track Enterprises, correct?
Well, I mean, it can be limited to just the Track Enterprises contract if you want.
So move that.
I'll second that.
You so moved it as limited to Track Enterprises, am I correct?
I did.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, any discussion? Okay, let's take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bergeron?
Aye.
Commissioner Hemmer?
Aye.
Aye.
And I am aye as well. Thank you, Laura, for bringing that to us. Okay, now we are moving on. Well, Christy, do we have anyone on the line? Just another check.
No callers.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to both the lease with Walsh Management and the ground lease with the Sports Authority that we have been asked to contemplate. We have from Metro Attorney Tom Cross to walk us through those leases and what is different from the last time we approved those leases. Mr. Cross?
Hi, good morning. This is Tom. I sent around a memo that I hope you all have had an opportunity to see. As Ms. Cavera mentioned, the board approved both of these documents in 2018, and the changes to them are really not substantial, mostly to update the project dates. Obviously, things have proceeded, as you've heard, in the interim, but one change of significance is the slight reshaping of the properties that are subject to the development ground lease. Particularly 8C, the configuration has changed a little bit to reflect negotiations between the mayor and the team. So the exhibit to that ground lease, you'll notice, has changed a little bit in shape. I would also like to point out that one of the provisions of the development ground lease that the Metro Council had inserted by resolution, the so-called Freeman Amendment, has come out as well. This was a provision that would have caused this ground lease to terminate in the event that the soccer team failed to play in the soccer stadium for 24 consecutive months, and the developer would not be able to get commercial financing. It doesn't appear with that provision. So there is a parallel request pending before council to remove the so-called Freeman Amendment as well. I'd also like to point out that one of the exhibits to the stadium ground lease, the Walsh lease, is this RNDA, the Recognition, Non-Disturbance, and Employment Agreement, and you had a caller that asked a question about it. That document does not give any additional rights or contemplate any additional property beyond what is described in the stadium ground lease. It simply deals with the very unlikely possibility that the stadium ground lease might terminate before the ground lease does. And so there needs to be a way for the Fair Board rather to step into the shoes of the landlord on that lease as well. So that's all that does. So otherwise, the changes are limited to reflecting revised project dates and clarifying what property is being leased. That's all that's changed since 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Do we have any questions from the board?
Commissioner McAnally, this is Jason. Commissioner Bergeron, I have some questions. Attorney Cross, I'm looking at the parcel map attached to the development ground lease, and I have some pretty significant concerns. I'm looking at the depiction of a racetrack and projects there, buildings on that property. And I guess kind of two levels. One, I met with SMI twice last summer on their initial proposal, which they then amended. And when they amended their initial proposal, they removed what appears to be some large bleachers on the south side of the track. That I see those back in this map, and that parcel, that structure seems to impede upon parcels 6B, 1A, and 2, so Fair Park and other public structures. Further, there's a structure to the north in that map that impedes upon parcel 6A, and all of that seems to conflict with the parcel map that's attached to the stadium ground lease. So I have some real concerns about us approving that development ground lease map, and would wonder why we wouldn't attach the exact same parcel map that I'm looking at, the color-coded one that's at page, at Exhibit A to the stadium ground lease. Why wouldn't it be exactly the same for the development ground lease?
The development ground lease is just limited to the specific parcels that are subject to the lease. It isn't intended to address any changes to the footprint of the racetrack or anything else, including the stadium. It's just limited to those 3 subparcels that are subject to the lease. And I should also note that there have been no buildings that are finally designed for any of the sublease tracks that are subject to the development ground lease. So those just reflect the property outlines.
Right. So I don't know. I guess why wouldn't it look exactly like the stadium ground lease exhibit, the one with all the color coding that has them all labeled? Why wouldn't those two be the same?
Because the stadium ground lease is mostly intended. The drawing that I think you're looking at is intended mostly to show parcel. What is labeled there is tract 7, and it's important because that is the property that is described as the premises under the stadium lease. Just to reflect it, there's a legal description, Block D, that's parcel 7. It's important that the stadium ground lease reflect only the tract that is subject to that lease. Similarly, under the development ground lease, it reflects only the tracts that are subject to it.
Yeah, I'm going to reflect concerns. There's a, this is something I can talk about a little bit after. There's sort of a pretty steady stream of misinformation coming from certain segments about what the status is at the racetrack. And I just have a lot of concerns approving a map that depicts things that haven't even been funded or haven't even had presented plans to pay for. And conversations I had with the mayor's office recently confirmed that there is no concrete proposal at all right now, and so I just have a lot of concerns with what is done with or what is misrepresented if we approve a map that depicts something that doesn't exist on it, even inadvertently. And I would really like to see that removed from this exhibit.
And can you elaborate a little bit the significant parts of the map on the ground lease, the development ground lease, are intended simply to show where parcels 8A, B, and C are located, not to show, what's going to happen on the track or where any specific building is going to be built as a part of this development. If there are going to be changes to the shape of any of these subparcels, it'll have to come back to this board for approval.
Yeah, understood, and I respect that. I think that there's we have a real problem right now with misinformation being promulgated, and I'm concerned about the unintended consequences of that. And I guess I would question, could we substitute an exhibit that has nothing over to the right there on the track and just is completely whited out there with just a blank space and just shows 8A, B, and C, and then an outline for the track parcel.
You can move to approve with that stipulation. We'll be happy to substitute a revised drawing that just shows the outline of the track.
Thanks for clarifying that. Appreciate it.
Any other questions for Mr. Cross? So, Mr. Bergeron, if we do contemplate that motion, it would happen after we contemplate the resolution, I'm assuming?
I would defer to council on the sequencing preferred. And I guess I need to see I'm trying to pull up the resolution, but yeah, I would like to make that motion in approving the development lease. So I just would ask that we have the chance to clarify the information, and then maybe have the chance to see how that all fits together.
Mr. Dickerson, would you like to speak to that?
We can, the proposed resolution, we can make an amendment to that. That was just a standard in case the board adopted it straightforwardly. So you can move to adopt the existing resolution with an amendment proposed by Commissioner Bergeron, and we'll make those changes.
Okay, great. So this resolution has been distributed to everyone. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, does it need to be, does it need to be moved with Jason's amendment, or can we amend it afterwards?
I was about to make the motion.
Okay.
If Commissioner Weiner could withdraw her motion, then Commissioner Bergeron can make his motion with the amendment.
Commissioner Weiner, would you withdraw? If you don't mind.
I thought that we move the resolution and then he moves to amend it because it's already on the floor, but that's okay. I'll withdraw it and we can redo it.
Thank you.
Second.
I would move to approve the resolution with the with one change to that resolution, being that the exhibit A attached to the development ground lease be revised to delete the detail included around the Speedway parcel, and instead just reflect a plain white outline for that parcel on that map, and with that change would approve the resolution.
Do we have a second?
Second for purposes. Yeah.
Okay. And do we have any discussion?
Yes, Commissioner Hammer. I'm not sure that Metro Legal or the team or anyone can comment on this. I just want to make sure we're not having any unintended consequences from changing this. I know there's a lot of moving pieces with the other boards and subsequent government entities involved in this. So just want to have someone comment on that, appropriate person.
This is Tom Cross, and I'll take a stab at that. The exhibit is also an exhibit on the resolution pending before council. We can ask that they approve with the same change that Council Bergeron has noted in his motion.
Yeah, just for since we're on the discussion piece, I just wanted to sort of speak briefly of why I think this is important. You know, there continue to be a lot of pieces where we're trying to get information. You know, the discussions around the speedway have remained steeped in darkness in a lot of respects. But I did have a good conversation with Bill Phillips from the mayor's office recently, and he assured me that the Fair Board would be actively involved if there was anything concrete, and nothing has been, you know, concretely done. I mean, obviously we've had other items going on in this world, but there was a meeting, the first meeting in a very long time coming up between the mayor's office and SMI. But so there's nothing there, and I say that, you know, because there's still a very long way to go before anything will be done at the track. And you know, I can already see sort of the positioning happening quietly. People are saying, well, renovate the track. Well, you know, the parties involved, SMI, and even for the most part, the mayor's office agree that this would be a brand new, if there was ever a proposal, it would be a brand new track. This isn't a renovation. It's not a quaint rejuvenation. And so there's a lot of discussions that need to happen. And I know I sound like a bit like a broken record on this, and I appreciate the board's patience with me, but it's important because this has not been vetted. There is no funding, period, for it. There is a potential bond funding in the capital spending plan that needs to still be approved, but there's no way to pay for that because SMI has not, as of yet, proposed to pay 1 cent of this, you know, project. And so it's important because none of that has happened. And so, you know, when that funding placeholder was put in the capital spending plan, which is just a very preliminary step, well, then the word was started spreading that it was approved and that this track's approved. And so that's why I'm very sensitive to not doing anything further that makes it seem like something has been approved or vetted that has not been approved or vetted at all and is still a very, very long way off. And we need to figure out how this would be paid for to the tune of $60 million plus when right now we're being paid $3,000 per race for rent. So I think that this is an important little change that may not seem significant, but I think it's very important to underlie that as to the uses of that parcel, as to the future there, nothing's happened yet. And that's why I think it's really important that needs to remain that way, because I fear that if something was approved otherwise, then we would sort of hear that lockstep and, you know, and the lobbyists are going to do what lobbyists are going to do to try to make things seem like they're done. But I just think it's really important that this small change we made to sort of make clear that nothing has happened yet at that parcel. So I appreciate the board's, you know, consideration of that.
Thank you for your diligence in that, Commissioner Bergeron. On that same note, I have a question about Fair Park Phase 2 too, because it looks like it is. Does saying Phase 2 make it in the future enough to speak to the same thing that you're saying? Like this doesn't exist currently. Does that need to be contemplated as well?
Well, Fair Park Phase 2 is certainly has received more. It's further along in because it's been planned, and I think they're just looking for the final funding approval there. But okay. I mean, and I think we've all approved. The Fair Board has approved that plan quite some time ago. So I would think there's a difference there in that regard. Okay. I guess that's more of a question. The other commissioners would agree with that. I feel like Fair Park is certainly something that's actually been vetted and approved and before the board multiple times. But would be happy to consider if there's agreement that shouldn't be there either. But I think there is a difference.
Any discussion there? Okay, any more discussion in general, then we can leave that for now. Should we vote? We're voting to approve this resolution as it stands with Jason's amendment to it. Okay, let's take a voice roll. Commissioner Bergeron?
Aye.
Commissioner Hemmer? Commissioner Weiner?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Okay, great. I think that is all of the business we have. Laura, do you have anything to add?
I do not. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, great. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Caleb, a motion to adjourn.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Weiner?
Aye.
Commissioner Bergeron, and I'm an aye as well. Great. Talk to you next month. Thank you, everyone.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.